Hi everybody, I'm going to show you how to use the data from this page to make a circle graph on this page. First of all, we see that the data you're given has the numbers listed in percentages. If I were to add up all the percentages, what should I expect them to come up to? That's right, 100%. Now the challenge here is that we want to put those percentages onto a circle graph. If I were to add up all the degrees in a circle, what should that add up to? 360. So my challenge is going to be to turn the percentages into degrees. And here's how I do that. What I need to do, and it's going to be upside down to start, but it will become right side up when I turn it around. I need to take the percentage and I need to turn it into a decimal number. And if you remember, the way that I do that is let's take a percentage like 50%. I pretend I've got a decimal point at the end there, and I move it to the left 2 spaces. And that gives me a decimal of 0.50. So again, I've got 50%, and I move that decimal 2 places to the left, and I end up with 0.50 when I turn a percent into a decimal. Once I have a decimal, then I need to multiply it by 360, and that gives me the number of degrees that I need to draw. So, the steps that you'll need to take are: take your percent and convert it to a decimal by moving that decimal 2 places to the left. Multiply by 360, and that gives you the number of degrees that you find on your protractor to draw. Let's give it a shot with one of the problems here. Here I've got oxygen. Oxygen's 47%. So I'll take my percent, that's 47%, and I'll move the decimal 2 spaces to the left. That gives me 0.47. And then I will multiply by 360 degrees. Let me grab my calculator. I've got 0.47 times 360 gives me 169.2. So again, oxygen was 47% on the table. I changed the percent to the decimal by moving the decimal point 2 spaces to the left. I got 0.47 times 360 equals 169.2. To put that on my circle, I'm going to start out, I'm going to draw a line from the center point out to the edge of the circle. Right, then I'm going to use my protractor to find 169.2 degrees. You'll notice on your protractor that some of the numbers start at 180 and some of the numbers start at 0. And on the other side we have 180 and 0. That's so that you could read the protractor both ways. I could either start from 0 and go this way using the outer band, or start from 0 and go this way using the inner band. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the little dot in the center, or in this case it's a perpendicular line right on the center point, line up that line with 0, and since my line's over here, I'm going to look for the 0, that's the outer band. I'm going to find 169.2. Turns out I have to go all the way around. All the way around. Here's 160, here's 170, so I'm looking at just about 170. I'll put a little mark there. And I pick up my protractor, and I line up, connect the dots from the center point to my little dot to the outside of the circle, and draw my line. And now I've got a piece of the pie that takes up about 47% of the circle. One good way to check your work is to estimate. 47% is about 50%. Does this take up about half the circle? Sure does. All right, let's do one more, and I'm going to skip around a little bit to a different number, but I always go down the list in order. And I'm going to move to calcium, which is 4%. Right, calcium's 4%. In order to change 4% into a decimal, I take that decimal point and I move it over 2 spaces. But here I have this blank spot. What do I put in the blank spot? Yep, a 0. So that gives me 0.04. And again, I multiply by 360 360. Look at my writing so messy when I'm upside down. And that gives me 0.04 times 360 on the calculator is 14.4 degrees. So I'm going to use my protractor to find 14.4 degrees. Again, change my percent, 4%, into a decimal by moving that over twice. I get 0.4 times 360 equals 14.4, and that's the degrees I look for. So when I go to put the next one on, I'll take my protractor. I'm actually going to line it up this time with the last line I made. So I put my center point there on the dot, line up my line. Here's 0. So I'm going to move up this way. I don't use the inside because that's 180. Then I'll be going way too far. So I come here up to 14. I'm going to go to about 15, just under, as an estimation. And now I connect the dots from the center point to my little mark to the outside of the circle. And there we go. I've got another thing. The last thing I want to do is get some crayons, shade these in and color them, and also label. So here I might say oxygen, and that is 47%. It's nice to put the percentage. And then calcium, I could even use the symbol, is 4%. And I'll fill this all in. When you're done, you should have most of the circle filled in with pie slices. If you don't, the most likely reason is that you're looking at these numbers as percents and not as degrees. And again, to change your percents into degrees, you convert to a decimal, multiply by 360, and that's when you find the angle that you draw.